Hola, konnichiwa, tudo bem, hello, ¿cómo estás? What it do? So, we are now on episode 5, okay, part 5 of the Stephen A. Smith versus LeBron James incident. And what we're going to look at here now is this is actually Stephen A. Smith on Gil's podcast, Gil's Arena. And this was really interesting. There was a lot of good stuff that was said. And we're just going to go through and break down this piece by piece. We may split this into 2 parts as well. So we may take 2 episodes to discuss this. But we'll see. We'll see how quickly we can get through it. But it's really important to listen to the words and the things that are said. So I know some of these videos are a little bit longer than some of you are used to, especially when dealing with sports. But a lot of people are not paying attention to exactly what's being said. You have to pay attention. You know, it's not so surface level. If you really want to understand why these things are happening and where they're coming from, with anything in life, you really got to pay attention to the details. If you really, really care and you really, really want to know which side you're on and you really want to make an informed decision of how you feel about it, you got to pay attention to the facts. You have to educate yourself in all things. So let's listen to this and get it started.
I get there in the first quarter. I'm sitting courtside, and I stand up, and then I got my head turned. And then I turned back around, and a lot of people thought this was the end of the game or something like that. This was in the third quarter. Apparently, LeBron had walked out of the timeout, and I turned around, and he's right here in my face. He said, yo, you got to stop talking shit about my son. You got to stop my son. That's my son. That's my son. And I was like, what? He said, nah, that. I said, yo, let's talk later. He's like, that, nah, that. You got to stop with my son. And I said, all right, dog. And he walked off. So I remember during a timeout in the first quarter, seeing Bronny. And Bronny looked over at me. And he had this sad look on his face. And I'm imagining Pop saw that shit. It hit him. Yeah. And he couldn't hold it, and he rolled up on me. And so when I went on the air the next morning, first things first, believe it or not, I know this is shocking for people to believe, but I didn't have any intentions on talking about it until I woke up that morning and saw that the shit had gone viral. Once the shit had gone viral, the bosses at ESPN, now you got to talk about it. This is you and him. You got to talk about it. I said, fine.
So you get a little taste of what he was talking about. He said he arrived in the first quarter, and then LeBron approached him in the third quarter. It was, you got to stop messing with my son. Stephen A. Smith was like, what? He was like, you know, stop messing with my freaking son. And basically, Stephen A. Smith was like, all right, man, okay, because he didn't want to make a scene, it seems like. And then he said he wasn't going to talk about it, but his bosses was like, you definitely got to talk about it. So as far as the approaching him part, I mean, I'm just going to throw this in there. My personal opinion, when you're in the middle of the game, you should focus on the game. That's just how I look at it. I've never heard of a person approaching a guy out of a timeout or wherever it was in the third quarter. I'm sure maybe it's happened before, but maybe it's just most people are not as big as LeBron James. So maybe that's why we don't know about it. But, I mean, that's interesting. So I'll just leave that there. And as far as Stephen A. talking about something, I didn't plan on talking about it, and then my bosses said you have to talk about it. I don't know. I don't think I buy that. Again, Stephen A. Smith is extremely smart, and he's one of the smartest people that's you know, consistently on TV and whatever right now. How he's gotten to this position is not by accident. It's not by being an idiot. Okay, he's not a basketball player, guys. He made his way to the top off of, you know, selling himself. Right, selling himself and taking advantage of different ways to get more money and more visibility. And now he has the ultimate visibility. He's on ESPN and has his podcast. If you think for one moment he didn't know that somebody saw that and he was going to be going viral with that, and you thought he was just going to keep it to himself, that's a lie. So I'm not buying that. Let's continue.
So I go on the air and I said, the first thing that I'm going to do is establish that this was a father talking to me, not a player. And that was what threw me off. And I was glad, even though I thought that he misrepresented the argument, I was glad he did. Because you see, what he was really talking about, which was confirmed with his conversation with Richard Jefferson, is that I was talking about him as a father. And so what happens is that had he said that to me, then I wouldn't have been thrown off. I'd have came right back at him. Yes, I was. I was talking about you. You did this shit, which I'll get to in a second.
So he's kind of restating what he stated in our last video, which is that the Richard Jefferson conversation kind of ticked him off to the idea of like, hey, hold on a second. You're talking about you. This has nothing to do with your son. You're talking about you. And now he's saying that if you would have came to me and said I was talking about you, that would have been I would have said, yes, I was. And that would have been a different conversation. So I agree with him on this. This seems valid. It makes sense. Let's continue.
And I'm like, if I do anything, this is going to be a scene. Now, we can sit up here in front all we want to and act like we don't work for somebody, but I work for Walt Disney. And if I had gotten into some with him at courtside right there at that moment, no matter how right I would have been, it would have been wrong. And I was like, I'm not going to do this.
Cap, it doesn't matter who you work for, man. You didn't have to cause a crazy scene, but you basically just said you were just like, all right, man. You know, and look, he handled it how he handled it. That's not my issue. But right now, what he's trying to do is he's trying to make himself look a little bit better, right? Like, what was I supposed to do? Was I supposed to, punch him in the face? Nah, but you also didn't have to just. It looked like he got the best of you, bruh. That's what it looked like, Stephen A. Smith. You're a $100 million man. You don't got to take that from him. You know what I mean? Like, it just didn't look strong. I'm not saying you have to fight him. I'm not saying that. I'm not an advocate for acting crazy in public. You know what I mean? But there's a way to still show some strength in that moment. And you didn't look strong. You look like a defeated puppy from the videos that I've seen. He just walked away from you like he told you something, like he told you to shut up and sit down, and you just took it. There's ways you could have did something to show yourself a little bit in a stronger light. And it didn't even need to be something that cost you your job or anything like that. Because they sure, based on your words a few minutes ago, they sure were comfortable with you talking about this, and they couldn't wait to hear you talk about this for ratings. So, if they want a show, give them a little bit more of a show. That's how I look at it. But to me, this is just Stephen A. Smith trying to postulate himself in a little bit higher of a light. But you didn't. No, you could have did more than that, man, and still kept your job and held a level of dignity and decorum in the process. Moving further.
Once I saw the tape of him talking to Richard Jefferson Saturday night in Boston, that was when I got really pissed because that was confirmation. Now let's get to the father thing. And I'm so glad y'all asked me about this shit because all I would ask is that I've been around for 30 years. Tell me the parent that said they heard me talking about them. I've never done it. What happened was this man was the one that said, you want me, draft him. I'll come play anywhere he's at. It ain't even about the money. This man is the one who said he's better than some of the NBA players are right now when he was in high school. If you go back and look at the tape, back then I said, stop. You can't do this. If you do that, You're bringing more pressure on your son. LeBron, stop. I said it then. This is before he got drafted. Stop doing this.
Now, I tried to validate this and fact check it to see if he did say this before the draft. I couldn't find anything, and I'm going to be honest, I didn't look super duper hard because I really don't care that much about it, and I don't think it changes anything majorly, but I'm not sure. But he does have a point here. Again, he's saying you're putting pressure on your son. And in his words, he's saying that he already said something similar to this before. So this is basically the second time that he's saying it. But fine, I don't think he's saying anything terrible here. I don't think he's lying. This is true. You put extra pressure on your son. We saw LeVar Ball do this with Lonzo Ball. And then in the first game of Lonzo Ball's career, you have, I think they played the Clippers, and Patrick Beverley was picking him up full court press just because his dad thought so highly of him. So people, when you say things about your son, when you say certain things, and in LeBron's case, he was saying that, oh, I'm watching this game, my son's better than the people in the G League. Just in the league in general. Bronny's better than a lot of dudes in the league. He took a dump on the players in the NBA, his co-workers, and he put an X on the back of Bronny's back. And so Stephen A. Smith is correct that LeBron did essentially put that target on his son's back. Now he's going to talk a little bit more about how he tried to avoid saying anything about Bronny. So let's see what he has to say.
He goes to USC. He got the heart ailment. I'm like, thank God he's okay. He gonna be all right. But I'm not gonna go see him at USC, just like I didn't go see him at Sierra Canyon, because like I ain't see Melo's son. I heard your son is all world. I ain't see him. Your son, I never saw these guys until they came pro, because I know. No, it's not that. Okay. I know that because of who I am and what I've established for myself in this industry, if I walk into an arena, everybody is looking for me to critique that person. And I don't want to do that because they want to come up. I'm not covering college, I'm covering pro.
And they kids.
Huh? And they kids. Well, I'm saying, but if I was a college reporter, then I would have had to, but I wasn't. So why am I gonna be there? I didn't want to put that extra pressure. So I never went. I went on national television and announced to the world, I'm not going to see him. He goes to USC, I'm not gonna see him. It's too much. It's too much. And then now he's got to overcome this heart ailment, so I can't judge him. But then they said, oh, he going pro. So then once you say he's going pro, okay, you're talking to the scouts and the evaluators and everybody else. Yo, man, this is them. He'll be lucky to be a second-round pick. He'll be lucky, he ain't ready, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I ain't seen him, y'all. I haven't seen him.
So now he mentions Kyan Anthony without actually mentioning him. Also Gilbert Arenas' son, who is killing it, supposedly. And apparently, from what I see on social media, and I don't remember what Gilbert's son's name is. I gotta look into that because I forgot what his son's name is. But they're both nice, definitely nice. However, Stephen A. Smith is saying like, "Oh, I didn't go see any of them play. I didn't go see Bronny play. I didn't go see Kyan play. I didn't go see Gil's son play. I only go by what I know because I don't cover that. I don't cover high school. I don't cover college when Bronny was at USC. So I purposely avoided showing up to go see him play." So that, I didn't have to talk about them. Okay, fair. Fair point. Very fair point. And so he's saying again that, I left these younger people alone. I didn't bother them. But also on top of that, you hear things about how good these kids are, and you don't know 100% what to believe until you see it. But he's saying that other people were saying at that same time that, oh, Bronny, he'll be fortunate to be a second-round pick. He may or may not be, maybe he'll be able to do that. Maybe. So he's basically alluding to the fact that even though LeBron James was hyping his son up and saying all this stuff, other people were not buying it. But he chose to stay quiet. Right? He chose to stay quiet. So let's see where he goes with this next.
This could be true, or this could be them wielding their magic to make it look such a way. I say nothing. He gets drafted by the Lakers, which everybody knew was gonna happen because, you know, the skids were greased, and he gets drafted. I still say nothing. He goes into the pro. It's opening night. Now remember, most cats talk about the league. I cover it. What I mean by that is that you can give your opinion. You might not be on the phone with the commissioner. You might not be on the phone with the executive VP. You might not be on the phone with other people that work in these offices. I am. So because of that, I'm hearing all of this. Yeah, you know, we just gonna go along with it. Opening night I'm talking about. Opening night. Him, Bron. We just gonna go along with it. Or you hearing the Lakers are just going along with it. You're hearing this stuff. Now, I'm not saying they told me that, meaning the commissioner or Jeannie Buss, but I'm saying you're hearing that from those organizations. So I'm getting all of this. I still say nothing. I'm cool. I'm at crypto.com arena. I'm one of those cats standing there.
Staples Center.
Ken Griffey, Senior and Junior, who all-stars, Hall of Famer, and Ken Griffey Jr., they got them there. And again, I've been covering it for 30 years, not NBA, sports. You understand? So how you think it's all looking to me? It's a little bit too choreographed. But I'm still. I'm still like this. Congratulations. You know what I'm saying?
So like I said before in part 4 of this Stephen A. Smith versus LeBron James incident, he's kind of repeating some of these things thus far on Gil's arena to these guys. What I think is interesting is that while he's saying this, nobody's cutting him off, right? Nobody's cutting him off. Nobody's stopping him. Stephen A. Smith essentially is cooking right now. But here's the problem with this. Like I said in part 4, you knew all this. You watched all this. Yet you said, oh, I was clapping. I was clapping. Like a trained seal, like a circus, like a fan at a circus. So, and now all of a sudden, this is where my issue comes in and why I think Stephen A. Smith is a fraud. So while I do believe he's telling some truth here, there's some truth that's being said, right? Obviously. But a real snake mixes in the truth with lies. The truth here is that, yes, he saw all these things, just like we did, just like I did. And when I was saying this, there were people that were calling me crazy, that were like, yo, you're just a hater. Why do you care? Well, Stephen A. Smith, this is why I care. You had an opportunity to say something a long time ago when people like me started to say something. But you wanted to play the game. You wanted to be a politician. You wanted to kiss people's butts, right? You wanted to prostrate your lips to kiss LeBron's butt. He earned this, saying stupid stuff like that. Nobody earns the ability to manipulate and be cheap and take shortcuts on things and be selfish and narcissistic against the rest of everyone else around them to play in our faces and make us feel stupid when we know we're not. And it backfired on you, Stephen A. Because with all that butt kissing, he still punked you in public. You can never kiss enough butt for somebody with a huge ego like that. Right? You never can. And that's my issue with this part. But we'll let him keep cooking. But just remember, like I said, and I said it in the last video too, this is what happens when people know something is wrong and don't say anything. But now you're upset on the back end because it is actually affecting you because he decided to punk you in public. Over nonsense, essentially. But we'll continue.
Because I'm thinking, let's have this moment because LeBron deserves it. The brother, I got him number 2 all time behind Jordan, right? He's done so much for the league. He's generated so much money. I want to hear about Bronny and the $8 million. As far as I'm concerned, LeBron underpaid. That's $8 million he should have had in his pocket. It's no big deal to me.
All right, so this is where, again, I have a problem with this line of thinking. He deserves it. Nobody deserves this, man. You don't deserve to break the rules and freak up the standards of the NBA. You're cheapening the sport when you do stuff like this. You're cheapening the what's that word? You're cheapening the authenticity. There we go. the authenticity of the league when you allow garbage, nonsense, crap like this to happen. And you sit back and you clap because everybody else around you is clapping. What a follower, man. And he's not the only one, but I am not a follower. I've never been a follower. I can't be a follower. It doesn't work for me. You cannot get me to clap for something I don't believe in. It's not going to happen. I may be sitting in the crowd, but I ain't clapping. I won't be clapping. Not for stuff like that. LeBron doesn't deserve that because no one deserves that. It doesn't matter who you are. No one deserves that. No one deserves to mess around with the authenticity of the league. And then he said, we know Bronny didn't get that $8 million. What? We should have gone to LeBron. LeBron's done so much for the league. He's generated so much money. Now, I do think LeBron has generated the league billions. I can't say nothing about that. But when people say he's done so much for the league, I know this is a topic for another day. But honestly, what has he done? And before you call me a hater and get upset with me, I just want you to be able to tell me what has he done that's been good for the league. Because this, to me, is not good for the league. It's great TV. It causes drama. But if you're into drama, it turns the NBA into a housewife show. And you know how I know that? Because I watch those shows with my wife. And I'm not going to lie, they're a little entertaining. Seeing chicks wild out over nonsense and fight each other. But at the end of the day, that's not what basketball was supposed to be. That's not what sports is supposed to be. Not that type of drama. So I don't buy that, man. I don't buy this idea that he deserves it. And then you're saying, you know, that $8 million you should have gave to LeBron because he's worth so much more. Maybe. But, you know, to be 100% honest with you, I think I'm worth more than I get paid. Do any of you think you're worth more than you get paid? We're all worth more than we get paid, in my opinion. For your time, your hard work, the energy that you put into your job. And we don't play basketball. We actually got to work. So no, man. I don't really like. I don't love this. I don't love this part. I don't love this part. Let's see where he goes next.
0.3 points. 0.3 rebounds. 0.4 assists. Blah, blah, blah. And I said, damn. Why? Because I'm like, now I can't ignore it. Because how am I doing my job? If now you put me in a position where because they put the stats up, everyone is blowing it up. They're putting it on all their social media pages. And it's like, how all of that's happening, but Stephen A. Smith got nothing to say. I can't get away with it no more. So I go on the air and I say the same thing I said over the summer. Yo, LeBron, if we see this, you're his dad and you're a basketball savant. You must see this. Don't do this. Because you're putting him under such a microscope. It's going to be too much for him to overcome. Give him a chance. So that's what I said. And because I prefaced it by saying, as a dad, the only reason I said as a dad is because you marketed yourself as his dad to help him get into the league. Mm-hmm. You didn't do that. Melo didn't do that, or it hasn't yet, and I know he wouldn't.
D-Wade,
Tim Hardaway Sr., Rick Barry, the list goes. None of them did that. None of them. He's the only one.
And so Stephen A. has given his reasoning for why he said as a father, because LeBron James marketed himself as a father. They're posting up the stats with the 0.3 points and all this stuff. So he said, eventually I got to say something. And you put all this hype on him, and that's why everybody's following him. And the other thing is, Clutch Sports has been up here marketing their behinds off. Every good game he has, they cannot wait to finish talking about him. He could score 2 points, and they're like, look, that's 2 more points than he had yesterday, guys. Make it an ESPN main page. LeBron and his team have done these things, man. It's their fault. But like I've said before in the past, which is my frustration with Stephen A. Smith, I've said to people, when else have you ever seen this? Don't tell me about Rick Barry. I didn't even know who John and Rick Barry were in the NBA during the times that I was watching Kobe and them play, until I learned more about the game and realized, like, oh shoot, Rick Barry the father was a great player. I didn't know that before. Now, I knew Tim Hardaway Jr. was Tim Hardaway's son, but I never thought for 1 second that Tim Hardaway Jr. got in the league because of his dad. Now, obviously, he probably did, even the Barry brothers. There's a level of nepotism. There's a level of nepotism to Kobe Bryant and Steph Curry, as great as they are. Their fathers were in the NBA. If your father's in the NBA, you have a better chance of making the NBA. I don't know how tall Jelly Bean Bryant was. He was at least like 6'6", 6'7", I think. I wish my dad was 6'6", 6'7". That would have gave me a better chance to make it to the league. They probably were in all kinds of camps and training with all types of players and you know, knew some of these guys from back in the day that you know, none of us had an opportunity to grow up around or with or see what it was like to be in the NBA because their dads were in the league. So yeah, there's an advantage there. But there's a certain point where you have to take off the training wheels and let them be who they need to be. Right? And so Stephen A. Smith is saying again, you know, and he mentioned Melo. Melo, the most I see Melo hype up Cayenne is he talks about him a little bit, but then you'll see him working out with him, practicing, trying to get his jumper better, trying to get his ISO game better. But you don't see him going through all these extra, you know, chutes and ladders to make us believe his son is more than he is. His son has to make his name, and you know, he's got to want to be those things. All you could do is open some doors for him, but he's got to walk through and blow the doors off of the door that was just opened. You know what I mean? And so Stephen A. Smith here is telling the truth, right? He's saying some real facts, but the only thing I wish is you would have said this before, man. I wish you would have said this before when people like myself were getting called all types of names and treated badly because we had the fortitude and the testosterone. I made that word up. The testosterone. Try to figure out what I used. What two words? All right. Fortitude and testosterone, right? That's what men are supposed to have. In combination. The testosterone to stand up and say, nah, man, nah. This is not like that. What LeBron did and what LeBron continues to do at times is completely opposite of what everybody else does. And then people say, oh, well, he's changing the game. No, he's not. He's ruining it. There's a reason why some people move the way that they move, with dignity, with honor, with respect. This is not that. This is not that. There's a reason Rick Barry handled his stuff the way he handled it. There's a reason Del Curry handled it the way he handled it. Joe Bryant handled it the way that he handled it. Right? Tim Hardaway handled it the way that he handled it. Bill Walton handled it the way that he handled it. LeBron's not special because he decided to handle it like this. He's the opposite. And it's almost like, in my opinion, he didn't even believe in his son enough to let him go through these processes the normal way. His ego jumped in the way. Next clip.
And I said, yo, that's why I'm saying this to you. I don't want to do this. I know your intentions are honorable. Go back and watch the whole tape of me saying it. I know your intentions are honorable. I know you don't mean harm. But there's some vultures out here, and they going to come for him. And how many times over the years, to get to your point, in terms of what you asked me about what you expect from me, Stephen A., blah, blah, how many, find the brothers in the industry that will tell you, I did not give them a lookout. I'll go up to them all the time. Yo, come here. I'm not going to be able to help you if you get to this point. You need to stop this shit right now because it's coming. It's coming. That, to me, is where I reach back and I pay back. By giving cats the heads up are the minefields.
That's a cap. Stephen A. Smith is this is where, again, the capping and the clout chasing is coming in. He said, I see that coming. I see the vultures coming. Well, vultures. You mean the people that are just trying to hold you accountable for what you said, Mr. James? It's what you said. You said it. God forbid we hold people accountable to the things that they say and do. But I guess you're not allowed to do that when they're rich and famous. So you get called a vulture for holding people accountable for the things that they say and do when they're rich. Got it. Okay. And Stephen A. Smith talking about I see the vultures. I'm trying to give you a heads up. Garbage, malarkey, hogwash, rigmarole nonsense. No, you don't. Because again, I saw what you did to Kwame Brown. I watched what you did to Kyrie Irving. I watched what you did to Russ Westbrook. When did they get a warning shot? Or they just weren't more powerful or powerful enough for you to give them some warnings? You went out of your way to tell everybody how wrong Kyrie Irving was, and you just kept riding with it, kept riding with it. And you dang sure didn't come to support Russell Westbrook when he was with LeBron, because, he doesn't have as much clout and power as LeBron James does. So you went with the clout and the power. You're not an angel, Stephen A. Smith. I wouldn't even consider you that honorable of a man. Maybe you have some honor, but you wouldn't be the number one person I would think of when I think of honor and respectability. You are definitely advantageous. You are definitely an advantageous individual, sir. So that's how I feel about that section. And we're just basically, there's more things going on here as far as there are more clips, but I think we'll just do one more, and then we're going to move on to another video. We're going to do Stephen A. Smith versus LeBron incident part 6, because I don't want this one to be too long. So bear with me. We're going to keep the series going until we get to the bottom of it, until we look at all the facts and come to our own conclusions. Let's roll our last clip for this video, and then we'll call it an episode.
I had to ask you about your son the other day. I've been hearing about his son for a while. I had to ask him about him. You understand what I'm saying? You got to ask. Melo, listen to Melo talk about how he had to step back. He was desperate for his son to go to Syracuse, but he didn't want to influence him. You said, Melo never talked about his son like that. You had to ask him. And so you see a lot of this stuff happen, and then you see this. And I'm like, so as a media member, now, this is the part y'all may not take into consideration. You don't have to care, but we do. If I don't say nothing. Wait a minute now. I would have said something about somebody else. I'd have said something before.
Okay.
How long am I supposed to go without doing my job? The brother is in the NBA. He is wearing a Lakers uniform. So it's like, wait a minute here. You got to a point where it left you no choice. So then all you can do is speak respectfully, but honestly. And then everybody was caught up in as a father. Yeah. And I'm like, come on, man. Come on, man.
So again, he's trying to say that he was being respectful. He took a long time to come to this. At what point does he have to do his job? So this is true, and I understand this, and I respect this aspect of what he's saying. He also mentioned again that, like, Carmelo Anthony is another example of somebody who has a talented son, and he has gone way far out of his way to not overly influence his son, to let his son decide if he wants to follow in his father's footsteps. And that's a part of being a man. I'm sorry. That's how I see it. It's my opinion. Other people can have their opinions. I have a son. I don't wish to make every decision for him, to push him to the front of everything. He's has to make his own way. And that's important to me as a father. And I've actually had this conversation with some of my friends about how do you manage your son? What do you want to be a great father, you want to be better even than your father, but what is too much and what is too little? And is there a balance? And I think there's a balance. There's going to be times where I have to step in because he's going off the train tracks. And then there's going to have to be times where I step back and hope and pray and believe that I gave him the tools that he needs to be successful and that he will find a way to be successful. He's got to be his own man. He's got to grow his own teeth. I cannot do those things for him. I don't want people to look at him and say, well, your dad was a great man. I want people to look at him and say, well, your dad was a great man and you're also a great man. That's what I'd like people to say. That's more important to me than people always focusing on me when they see my son. I want them to see him first and then see me at a certain point. Excuse me. So thank you for listening to this episode. This is Stephen A. Smith vs. LeBron Incident Part 5. We're going to go into Part 6 next. And in Part 6, we'll finish up the Gil's Arena podcast interview. And then we will move on to the next bit. We're getting closer to the end. I know it's been going for a while, but we're getting closer to the end. But listen, you have to do it thoroughly. You have to take it piece by piece, step by step, and understand exactly what's being said. And make sure that they're saying the same things across platforms. Because what we also don't want is somebody saying one thing over here and saying one thing over there. And with this episode, Stephen A. Smith's tone is a little bit different. He is on a different platform, but he definitely looks like he's trying to be a little bit tougher here to gain the respect of the men that he's speaking with, which is fine. I don't have an issue with it. But I also think it's interesting that Kenyon Martin and Gil specifically have stuck up for LeBron more than I would especially expect from Kenyon Martin, because he seems like a no-nonsense type of dude. But I feel like he's been a little bit lenient on LeBron overall. Gil is a LeBron zealot, so he's just going to keep going with it. And Swaggy is being a little bit, if you listen to the whole pod, he is on LeBron's side to an extent here, which is fine. But I don't think Swaggy overdoes it, so that's fine. So we'll get up on the next episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate you very much. I really appreciate it if you're somebody that's listening through this whole thing, because I have a passion for really telling full stories. And I know some people's attention spans are not there, but I challenge you, grow your attention span. Really put things together. Take your time. You'd be surprised how smart you could truly be, right? So thank you. Like, share, and subscribe. Much love.